Team, hello again. Another Line Warcast. We have Someone Said That My Nickname Sucks. We're going to refer to them as nickname as always in blue, and Orbnet. Probably going to say Orb a lot in this game, and they will be in red. We don't know exactly where Orb is going to spawn. We see that nickname has picked this location. Orb is going here on the south. We can kind of quickly check the map out. A lot of water, a safe city in the top left, but we can see that both players are going to start beside each other. We can kind of get an idea of what both players see right off the bat. Orb's vision, they can see that nickname is right here, and vice versa. Nickname is going to be able to see just the edge of where Orb is. Nickname's going to cap to the north, sort of through the mountains. We know that infantry moves slower through mountains and forests, but that's going to be okay. Nickname's throwing down 3 quick factories, and these are tanks out of all factories. This factory is just whipping the tank around on the arm as it does. And Orb is going for a dock, barracks, and airport as the first buildings. I think those are the first 3 buildings, and then 2 quick factories close up. As we can see, nickname does know that Orb is right here, and so this game could start off with some fireworks. Nickname is getting their gas quite early. This is necessary for these tanks. Tanks do use gas, and nickname is building an airport themselves, so it's definitely kind of like a gas heavy build from nickname. We can see what so Orb's also going for tanks, and I assume this second factory they'll also go for tanks. So it's like a 3 factory tank opener from nickname and a 2 factory tank opener sort of from Orb. And generally tanks aren't that good in mountains and forests. They're like in when you're in wide open field, that's when they kind of do their best, or when they can flank your opponent and get on top of their production. So I'm really interested to see how nickname and Orb for that matter use these tanks. I think like Orb doesn't know that there's factories for nickname yet, and nickname doesn't know that there's factories for Orb yet, so they're both kind of building tanks blind. And these players, this is the top of the ladder. I'm sure these two have played against each other multiple times. We've actually casted one of their games before, so maybe this is like something that they know about each other, or they saw in earlier games with like the tanks and how to respond to it. So very interested to see how this goes and what the plan is. This dock is just for these infantry to go across. I like this play from Orb. Gets a bunch of the economy on the right side of the map that they can start eating away at, because this isn't actually a land bridge to this right island, this top right island, and of course the main island that they'll be able to go across over the water. Is what you see what's happening. I'm doing a poor job to explain it. The tanks, see, this is where tanks are really good. If these tanks can get through this forest, this is wild. If Orb had the infantry right here to body block these tanks, I can't imagine Orb knew this was coming, but that would be wild if that was like the next level play. If these tanks can get through the forest and then get around and get on top of this production, that could be really good for nickname. And it kind of pins these infantry on this airport and barracks, because these 3 tanks are definitely enough to do a lot of damage. And the first tank, like all 3 tanks are going to be able to get by. This infantry is going to do a decent job to body block, but it's going to be okay. Orb has 2 helicopters out already, so that'll be able to help with the tanks. I think in general Orb, okay, so Orb didn't go for tanks themselves. They canceled those tanks. So it's a SAM and then artillery coming out of these 2 factories at this point. Nickname went directly for this gas, like just coincidentally. So maybe this was just supposed to be a gas snipe. Although Orb hasn't taken their gas yet. So if Orb had taken their gas here, that would have been the biggest gazillion IQ play from nickname. We can check the income right now. This is something that will be important. 452 for nickname and 464 for Orb, so both pretty much the exact same. Unfortunately for nickname, these tanks are gonna not do as much as they could have. Although Orb is about to run out of gas. No, this is perfect gas timing from Orb, because this refinery is going to finish pretty much just in time to keep these helicopters flying. We can hear, that's obviously the low gas warning, but it should be finishing up, and there it is. And so now we can see that Orb's gas income went from, you know, being negative while flying these helicopters to now producing a surplus while still flying these helicopters. This one is maybe going to get shot down. Luckily, it's able to take off. Although I guess we don't know if tanks do more damage to helicopters on the ground or in air, or if it's always the same. When I say that out loud, it sounds silly. Surely they do more damage on the ground. This arty SAM blob, we've understood artillery and SAM to be like the convergent kind of unit composition. It's very solid. There's caveats to it, of course. It's not the perfect thing to make in every situation, but this is starting to be a little bit of a scary blob for Nickname in a good way. 3 factory versus 2 factory. I think in general this mountain range is going to be important. Nickname is going for their own dock a little bit to the north. The body of water, of course, you want to keep control of it. It will be, I think, very big in this game as well. This we've kind of highlighted. This mountain range is going to be a big point of contention, and then the water is going to be somewhere that things might pop off. Economy check. Nickname's at 548, and Orb is exactly at 548. Would you look at that? We can kind of explore the map. There's not a ton of economy on this map, as in when we say economy, we're talking about like these towns and this city in the top on the top left. This is a town square. If you get these 3 industries around this town, you can upgrade it to a city, which gives tons of income. It's worth 10 territories worth of income. These are big snipes. That's a big snipe for Orb. Getting those 2 helicopters right off the bat. Because now Nickname only has 1 helicopter, and Orb has a helicopter advantage here, and we'll see if Orb can push this advantage to their benefit. And with them reinforcing this position with these helicopters, I think the answer is yes. And potentially, I wouldn't be surprised if Orb kind of poked here, because I mean, this is sort of scary. We can see their view right here. There's 6 artillery pieces in front of a factory. This is a lot to kind of push, and yeah, as we can see, they're not going to even try to make those trades. And Nickname might even be able to push this, because they do have a production advantage. Like, that 3rd factory is actually quite big. We can see what Nickname is building. It's a destroyer, I think. Maybe this is a cruise? No, it's a destroyer, I'm pretty sure. We might be wrong. We'll see what pops out of there. 2nd airport for Nickname. Nickname's starting to go for strikers out of the airfield. I like that play. These production facilities are in reach of this airfield. Strikers, as we've seen in other games, if they can, you know, if a few of them can get off the ground and get to the production, they can do a lot of damage. This part of the island we're going to start seeing is going to become contested. Orb really needs to be able to land here and actually get a foothold, because that's a decent amount of economy that will probably come in handy and be huge in this game. Orb is going 3 factory right behind this mountain range, and these factories are very close to the front line, but in general I think this is actually the play to make, because this is with 3 factories and 2 airfields. Nickname will be able to push this quite effectively, and they've kind of actually banked up a bunch of the artillery from before in the first few minutes of the game. So I think this is actually maybe has the ability to catch Orb a little bit off guard. We can look at the rest of the map. These helicopters are going to do a great job to support those infantry on that island. Nickname, however, is going all the way down on the left side of the map. This is kind of big, especially if they can take some of those mountains, and maybe even build a proxy base in there or something, and get the commandos going. We've seen commandos used to great effect from Nickname in the past. We can see if the multitasking comes into play in this. We can hear more production going down for Orb. Here's another factory behind this to try to reinforce this push. Although I think over time Orb will be fine here. This looks a little bit rough, but these artillery pieces are actually capturing for Nickname. They're not really all fighting at once. This is a great flank from these SAMs though, because these SAMs might actually be able to take out this factory. Is this one of the first times we've ever seen SAMs take out a factory? Yeah, Orb's trying to move their SAMs over now. I think the SAMs are gonna get this. We're gonna sit here and watch though, because this is what Line War's all about. Surely with these firecrackers going off like this, SAMs are gonna be able to take this building, and they are. That was definitely target fired down by Nickname. We can check the economy because that's the real thing that matters. 716 for Orbnet, 752 for Nickname. So in general, this is very, they're very close to being tied. That's a big move by Nickname, and Nickname doesn't even lose a SAM. There's a decent amount of striker buildup that Nickname's been able to get out of this first airport. The second airport is actually making interceptors. So interceptors we've seen are kind of like a high skill unit. They're very fragile, but if you can keep track of them and have them fighting air units, it's really good for you. This is great combined arms from Orb, and although they're out of gas, they're getting this second refinery, and this is a very bold refinery. I wonder if this is a really wild second refinery for Orb. I would have thought that they would take one of these refineries, but maybe they figured that they had the Navy advantage, because this cruiser, like these two cruisers rather, the second cruiser pops for Nickname just in time. And the third cruiser, we didn't even notice. Like, this is wildly in favor for Nickname on the ocean. And so if they can go in there and snipe that gas of Orb, that'll be huge, and we'll keep these helicopters on the ground, keep whatever boats are left from Orb from sailing out. But we're about to see just how well cruisers do against other boats. And in the north here, we can see that Nickname has put down some production. This is a decent amount of income. It's very important for that neither player lets the top get away from them. And with the help of these helicopters, Orb's going to be able to fight this off. And I'm actually surprised. But helicopters are really good against cruisers. Cruisers really can't do much against anti-air. We can see that Nickname is really trying to retreat these cruisers and building missile boats behind it, which is really smart. If there's a time to launch the interceptors, Nickname might be able to get away with it right now, or at least the next time that push happens with the cruisers, because they're starting to get a decent amount of planes. We can see what the planes are like on Orb's side of the map. Still helicopters for them. Orb, we know, is a big proponent of helicopters and swarms of helicopters. They can be very strong as long as they don't go over entire nests of SAMs. This is a big battle, although Orb will be able to clean this up. They definitely have enough, and with this another factory at the back here, which I like, to make sure that this does get cleaned up, and then potentially trying to push into the mountains. There's a decent amount of action around, so we're trying our best to capture it all. I'm surprised and impressed that Orb was able to get that gas up, and because that's huge. This air of Nickname is a great call. I think, unfortunately, numbers wise, there might be enough SAMs for Orb to deal with this. We did say that maybe there's going to be a chance for Nickname to get some commandos going, and they have, so thank you, Nickname, past Nickname, for making us look good by actually doing the thing that we said might happen. Navy-wise, this is still good for Nickname. Nickname's known for building, like, cruisers, being, like, rather, in the games that we've watched, being a little bit cruiser-heavy on the water. And if you can complement the cruisers with, like, interceptors, for example, like great case in point, then cruisers are going to be your best bet coming out of the out of the dock. We can watch how Nickname was sent a attack command for the interceptors to kind of go around the water because they didn't want these missile boats of Orb to be able to get in the way and cut this off. Because if these interceptors can get on top of these helicopters, they're going to, and like, you know, get good trades and actually fight them without any missile boats. This is really good for the interceptors. Interceptors definitely win in this situation. We can watch how this push is going. There's a factory making a tank up in the forest, which could be very sneaky. If these tanks can kind of get down here and get on top of the production again, like that could be, it could legitimately be game-ending blows on a lot of players if they're not paying attention. We can look at the way that Orb's been able to get the right side of the map. They're definitely getting a foothold on this part of the, you know, like this peninsula thing. They're gonna need to build production here, though, I think. I don't know. I don't think that 6 helicopters is gonna be able to do enough. This push is kinda gonna stalemate, I think. I think ultimately Nickname will get pushed back because there is a decent amount of production, as we say, at another factory thrown down from Orb. So I mean, you can do it. Like, this is 8 factories against 3 for Nickname, and if Nickname keeps running into this, they're gonna over time just super get pushed back. Like, Nickname can see that there's a decent amount of production here, but I think the other thing that's more important is actually this northern fight. Because Nickname definitely wants to get rid of this gas. And I think once they get a decent amount of SAMs, I mean, it's happening already, right? Like, Orb's not going to be able to contest this. The interceptors are coming in. If the helicopters want to fly, they're going to have to run into a bunch of interceptors. Orb is going to lose this gas. We can see what this does to their gas income. They launched the helicopters, but I don't know how this works. There's a missile boat, but surely I think this is a fight that Nickname handily wins, especially with the 3 SAMs in the top. This is quite a little cool fight, though. Helicopters are so good unless they're gonna hit by SAMs. Which, I mean, I guess would be obvious. Just say that sentence out loud again and see how ridiculous it is. Yeah, here Orb's been able to mount a defense. And if Orb's able to group up and push, this could be big. Nickname still has a good amount of SAMs, but there's not really any air support on the bottom for Orb. The big thing that we need to do is finally check the income. 920 for Orb and 932 for Nickname. So both players are powering up economically, and they're certainly on top of it. I don't think either player started to build economy that I can tell. These commandos are about to, I mean, if they can run down this mountain and start sniping production, that is really big for Nickname and can start the multitasking of Orb. Orb using the speed of the missile boats to get on top of this dock. They definitely will be able to kill this. I don't even think with this haste move, because this will be a haste move. Yeah, Nickname hastes this, so these boats move super quick. They use tons of gas, as we can see, especially since they're moving quicker. But even with this, I think Orb's going to be able to take control of that. Can kind of go big picture. These commandos of Nickname are going to slowly loop their way around to whatever production may exist for Orb. Orb only has the 1 factory that's coming up, but those commandos are probably going to come into play later and be quite annoying. These black puffs of smoke of Nickname are because they're out of gas, and your boats and any gas units for that matter don't fight that well when they're out of gas. They take a bunch of penalties, their armor and the damage that they do. These commandos, of course, doing a fantastic job to snipe a building if they can run out of there. As they do, Nickname is retreating them to the back so that they can continue to be annoying and hit these buildings. That's going to do a great job to not only distract Orb, but also, more importantly, pull a lot of these units that could be going to the front, pull them back to have to deal with these commandos. Surprisingly, Nickname held on to this dock, and the Nickname is now getting their second gas in the back left of the map. We can see the production that Nickname has going on this side of the map. Orb doesn't have the same, and I think without adding more production there, Orb is gonna slowly fall behind on that part of the island. Just because there's 3 production buildings up north for Nickname. So with all of that, there's going to be a lot of reinforcements. I mean, we said 3. There's actually 4. There's 4 production buildings. So you can imagine this is over time going to work out for Nickname in their favor. They've been able to keep both their docks, get rid of this gas of Orb. I'd say in general this is looking good for Nickname. I think they probably have the momentum a little bit right now, especially if this push starts to get to the mountain range. For it, like Nickname's push gets to the mountain range. We can hear groups of SAMs fighting, which is of course the best audio possible in this game. That's not even a joke. These helicopters are dealing with these tanks. The tanks are on capture move, which is fine, but they might be better suited to get on top of this production. But of course there's tons of stuff going on in this game. Yeah, so Orb is now building production on this part of the island, and that's definitely the right call. With this sort of navy, I don't think Orb's going to be able to keep ferrying across like this. They really need to focus potentially on getting a navy themselves. I think maybe Orb is certainly better at this game than I am. There's no hesitation when I say that. So we'll see what the idea is, but I don't know how else they're expected to keep this part of this top right without adding more production like they've done. We'll see what this Nickname push is able to do, and if it's able to get on top of that production, it's not going to be good for Orb. These tanks are sort of on top of the production, but this is definitely not where they want to be fighting, especially with these helicopters. Another barracks for Nickname in the left. We can kind of quickly check if either player has started to make economy in this game. The answer is no. I don't know if Nickname has this back left yet. Not quite. This is just kind of a slugfest. A little bit. This has been a little bit of constant action since the game started. And this navy for Nickname is actually huge. Like, we can see what the naval strength is, right? There's 5 cruisers, 2 missile ships against 3 missile ships for Orb, and we'll see if Orb is making cruisers. They are out of one of their docks, at least, which is smart, and a way to... It's going to be hard to win this game, I think, without controlling this ocean to some degree. Economy check. Orb at 920. Nickname at 1064, so Nickname is ahead in the eco game. Which is huge, especially if Nickname can use that to their advantage. They're kind of stockpiling up tanks again in the left. I like this. And this push is definitely working. This push is working enough that with these reinforcements, Orb might actually be fine. But there's so many strikers that Nickname has. We can see they've built an airstrip. Once there's 5 planes at an airport, as we see on this north one, the airport stops making planes. So by building airstrips, not only do you kind of get your planes closer to the action in a lot of cases, but one of the other reasons to use it is to make sure that you can get the airplanes off the airfield so the airfield keeps producing planes. Felt like quite a long sentence, but this is a retreat path movement for these planes, which is great. I think that was done mostly to make it so that these strikers didn't just proc to these SAMs, because if they were on attack move, these planes would have just immediately started attacking all this artillery, and then in hindsight, Orb's done this is a really great play by Orb to intercept these planes on the way home. But if they didn't do that, and if they were still off to the right, then all of these planes would have got home without taking any damage. This is, I think, the next big spot that we need to walk. So one of the production facilities of Orb died, because we knew that they had 3 down here. And this is a lot of reinforcements for Nickname, and if Nickname can push Orb off of that part of the island, or that peninsula thing, whatever, I think this is going to be a tough sell for Orb, because that's just so much income. This dock surely will go down this time. We're going to go big picture here, though, because this is the only real way that we can watch all these things going on. The push on the bottom left is not going well for Nickname. With a grouping, Orb should be able to push themselves, or at least make sure that this doesn't go down. The dock is somehow going to live again. And on the right, I think Nickname has the numbers. This is a big win for Nickname to keep this dock again, because importantly, Nickname gets rid of Orb's navy. Like, these are all the boats that Orb has. These strikers are doing a great job to help out. 3 cruisers against a cruiser and 3 missile ships. 3 cruisers definitely win that. We can check both players' gas. Orb getting a little bit low because they're only on the 1 refinery right now. And I think that might be a pretty important part of this game. Nickname's gonna be able to push this like over time too. Because the only reason this isn't working for Nickname right now is because they don't have the artillery advantage. But now with all of this navy and the gas to move this navy, Nickname is gonna push their advantage. I wonder if this is going to be an overextension, especially if they walk into 2 more docks that possibly make boats at the right time. We can see how close they are. Yeah, like both boats are kind of close to finishing, so the numbers are going to be a little bit closer. And this is just where like more production for Orb really helps out, because just over time, these whatever amount of buildings, you know, beats this less amount of buildings for Nickname. Like, you're just able to amass way more. These have generally been commando barracks, which have been really good for like this back capping and the backstabbing. But for like just raw push power, they're not doing the same as all these factories that Orb has. And we can see that in this big arty sand blob. I think a Nickname's at real risk of losing this position if they're not careful. Sending these strikers across to deal with this on the peninsula is a really good play. I think if Nickname manages this well, they probably will be able to push Orb back. I think all that's really missing is just a little bit more artillery. And I don't really know where all the helicopters of Orb went. They're not over there. The Navy for Nickname is capping these points. The top left island is still up for grabs. These tanks are running into a bunch of artillery. We can see how they trade here. Orb's helicopters have landed, which is great timing. I mean, I guess actually the helicopters need to pick up to get away from these interceptors, because we've learned that interceptors can just shoot them while on the ground. And the only reason they're not right now is because they're actually just transferring to the airstrip. Oops. Yeah, these tanks have unfortunately done nothing. It's kind of like a hard area to navigate, to be fair, like through the mountains and the forest. This air support could come in clutch for Nickname. We can see that Nickname's doing a great job to like group all their units to get like a decent concave here. Make sure that not everything goes in one at a time. I mean, these commandos are, but they're just trying to show off to their buddies. The rest of most of the units here are going to be grouping. And I don't even know. We have to look at the income to get an idea. Nickname's at just over 1,200 income and Orbnet's at 950. So that'll be where, if Nickname can hold this, not lose too much, and then use that income to their advantage, Nickname will be in a great position. They're going to clean up this. So this entire landmass is theirs, and so that will only cause more econ problems for Orbnet. Orb hasn't done any development economically on their side of the map. We can see that Nickname has started with these 2 towns. That's about it on that front, like on the economic development front. This is definitely cleaned up for Nickname. This looks ugly because there's 2 artillery pieces being sticky for Orb, but that's definitely Nickname's part of the island. But maybe something that matters way more is that Orb is going to be able to take out this refinery. Very potentially. Orb's out of gas. And Orb's not going to be able to keep moving this navy. The boats just take so much. This is a great landing by Nickname to try to snipe this gas. We've seen that Orb is already low on gas, so if Nickname can snipe that gas, that's so big. Nickname has their own, their own gas reserve, and they have tons. Well, not tons of planes, but they still have plane production. I'm really interested to see if they can keep this. We can just kind of go big picture here again to see if the infantry in the bottom right for Nickname are able to get that refinery. I believe they will be able to, which is going to kind of leave the Navy of Orb in a weird spot, because if the Navy can't move and runs out of gas, the boats take so much more damage. But I think that Orb's going to be able to hold it. Yeah, Orb's able to respond to that quick enough. This is like super. These players are super quick on everything. I mean, where's casting? We can barely keep up with it. Refinery is super dead for Nickname. There's a second refinery here though, so there's actually Nickname has at least 3 refineries. They probably have more. These commandos could be big, because they're really, as we've seen, like those commandos on the bottom make it just so that there's so many units of Orb that can't go towards the push and has to kind of, you know, defend backwards. This is a huge naval blockade from Nickname. As we can see, this part of the map is totally Nickname's now. They're building another refinery. Pretty sure that's what this is. Yeah, I think so. No, maybe a factory. No, it's a refinery. Or a power plant maybe, but either way, getting more gas to make sure that Nickname can keep flying all of these planes, because there are quite a few of them. There's an airstrip here and an airstrip here. We're kind of missing the Navy fight. We'll go a little bit big picture. This is definitely enough boats for Nickname. Nickname has enough boats to win this fight. And now this will be tough, because when you lose the naval, like when you win the Navy battle, you can just push your opponent like all the way to their shores and make sure that they can never get a dock again in general, which is huge. So to kind of like re-establish a Navy is going to be a big challenge for Orb. The good thing that Orb has going for them is that they actually have pushed this position all the way back. These interceptors are great to help these commandos. They're not, interceptors aren't great against shooting at stuff on the ground, of course. That's a, holy cow. That's a role for strikers. All these strikers just were lost because this airstrip was attacked and killed. I'm not surprised. There's a zillion things going on. Nickname's starting to try to board here, which would be huge. I mean, this would cut off Orb entirely and really take the entire map for Nickname themselves. But this is a really scary push. And this push is still going, and with those strikers going down, it would have been tough to make use of them because of all the SAMs that were around the airfield. But with those strikers going down, unfortunately there's not as much to help clean this up. One helicopter is coming in for Nickname. These interceptors are trying to help these commandos get on top of the production. I don't think they're going to be able to. There's just too much artillery. And if these SAMs for Orb get in position, which they are, I mean, the airfield's already going to be dead. So maybe that won't matter. This is wildly close. Although, the thing that scares me for Orb is how much, like, the income. Because Nickname's at 1322, and Orb's at 944. So, like, that's 400 income more. Both players have just about the same amount of money that they could spend, like capital that they can spend, but we see that Nickname's income is way higher. These commandos aren't going to be able to do much, unfortunately, although I love the idea. Like, unfortunately for Nickname, Orb's just been on top of, like, responding to these things. Like, because they've lost one production facility early, I think is what it was. Like, Orb's just on top of it. 3 factories for Nickname in the forest. These are at risk of kind of getting cut off a little bit. But I wonder if a big tank push can actually swing this, like this left side fight. Because I'd imagine Orb will continue to push up this left side of the island with that big push. Like that's the only real thing that's going well for them. This is a good garrison of folks at this gas so that this sort of play from Nickname won't work. This is a factory, I believe, for Orb. And we can kind of see the rest of the map. 4 airfields in the north for Nickname. And I wonder what they're going to be making. Probably helicopters. Helicopters or strikers, because it's this big push that's actually scary. And this is the perfect amount of stuff for Orb to like leave behind. We can see what Orb, you know, sees. They know that there's some amount of factories there. They can feel the commando pressure over to the left. This is fine. These are good missile boats for Nickname to be off in the water so that this can't really happen. See, like, these helicopters gonna have to go back, because if these helicopters were to run over a bunch of missile boats, that would not be good for Nickname. But this is, or sorry, it wouldn't be good for Orb. This is good for Orb, though, on the left side of the map, because that push is still so far away from being cleaned up. With these cruisers and missile ships, importantly, this might be dead for Orb. And if Nickname can get rid of this gas, that is such a huge win for them. I think in a lot of ways Orb has to make this push worth it. And with 4 helicopters coming out, there's only 4 SAMs with this push. There's 2 more on the way, but that's the sort of situation where very quickly the air of your enemy could just overwhelm your SAMs, and then it's over anyway, even if you had SAMs in position. And we'll see how that kind of plays out here, if that's the case. 4 helicopters against 4 SAMs. There's 4 more helicopters on the way for Nickname. I don't actually know how this trades. I feel like Nickname probably loses 1 or 2 helicopters, but we can watch. So 1 goes down. I don't know what the plan for these tanks are, but I love it. I love it. 2 helicopters down. 3, well, okay, so 4 SAMs into 4 helicopters, and 3 helicopters actually go down. There's definitely more on the way for Nickname, though. We can see, and they're producing 4 at a time. Still a very good push. 1250 income for Nickname. 1028 for Orb, so I don't know exactly if the math we said was off, but it certainly feels like they're starting to come back a little bit in that department. But this push is going to work. This is definitely going to work for Nickname, because Nickname's negated all the help in the air that they could have, like that Orb could have, just because of all these boats around the coast. So these helicopters really can't fly because they're going to get shot by those boats. This is great damage that Orb's doing to the economy of Nickname. After this, they're going to be able to get up on these airfields, as long as they don't lose everything right here. There's only 3 SAMs left, so these helicopters could start doing work, and we can see how quickly helicopters get rid of artillery positions. That's 3 artillery positions that they've already got rid of. 1 helicopter goes down. 4 artillery positions for 1 helicopter. Probably going to be 2 helicopters. This still looks good for Orb, especially with getting that helicopter. This is great. I think, like, in this far left sense, Orb's doing a good job, but overall this is still a very strong position for Nickname, especially if they're able to get this gas, which they I believe certainly will over time. Yes, this looks very ugly. But I wonder if this is gonna be able to get on this dock in this other town. Income-wise, 1133 for Nickname and 1064 for Orb. I think that's because they were able to kill this town and then push up so much of this left side of the map. And this is so much artillery. Like, Orb is definitely gonna get this left side of the map now. This is very sad to lose all these interceptors, but Nickname definitely is. Nickname's gonna be able to get this gas of Orb, though. which is going to ground everything that Nickname. I mean, Orb's not really able to fly many helicopters right now. I don't think they're flying on this side either. So, I guess maybe in some sense, Orb isn't really using this gas. They're putting down more production here, though, so they certainly must feel like this is important. This is such a huge artillery blob. I don't know who's winning this. I still feel like it's Nickname, because they're going to be able to establish a beachhead here with the naval support. These missile boats are in a great position to really kind of cut off all these helicopters from moving. We can see that there's no gas at all in the bank for Orb, so these 3 helicopters are stuck. We can see where they're planning on getting their gas. I don't know if they've started building one. Orb is definitely killing this down, and we have to keep checking in on that push, because that's that could do a lot of damage. But again, I think over time this is gonna be cleaned up by Nickname. Nickname has so much money, and so much money saved up too. I think it's gonna come down to whether these tanks get... I don't know, that's maybe not fair. This might just be Nickname's game at this point, because losing this is really terrible for Orb, because now this gas is exposed. Really, like there's nothing much that Orb's gonna be able to do to defend this gas. All these reinforcements from this side, Nickname's gonna be able to reinforce and send across the water. Orb, this is kind of big. Orb wasn't able to get that down, which is unfortunate for them. And Nickname's getting 2 more factories up north. Yeah, these tanks can do damage. This could just be game ending. But, you know, like, Orb's on top of it. Pardon me. Every time we switch players' views, it slides across the map. Orb is definitely on top of it. With this much artillery firing, I don't know how effective this is going to be for Nickname. Nickname is, however, able to get this factory with their boats. This is clearly in their favor. There's a decent amount of infantry here for Orb, but there's no artillery support, so the artillery of Nickname is just going to be over time, going to be able to, over time, clear this out and then push all the way to the gas. And I guess actually there must have been... These boats must have been able to hit this gas. We didn't actually see it, but Orb still has no gas. And Nickname has at least 2 refineries. It's a huge amount of artillery in the forest. And I guess the plan with this artillery would just be continue to push north. The tanks are doing the right thing, which is they're trying to get around the army so they don't actually have to fight the army. Because imagine if the tanks could even get down here and take out these back 2 factories and link up with the rest of the troops. Could be the play. I think in general this just really helps Nickname because it pins all these units at home. Although, you know, there's still like an enormous force on the left for Orb. That big blob. But income-wise, what we're going to be able to see is that there's no development from Orb. And Nickname definitely has most of the map. Even though they've lost a little bit on this left side, they definitely have more of the map. So we can check this. 1133 for Nickname and 1064 for Orb. So I lied. It's pretty close. Yeah, these tanks are finally able to get to the back. So we'll see if they're able to, you know, start sniping production. Even though I think in some sense they've already done their job a little bit. They are target commanding this factory, which is the things that tanks love to do. And this is a lot of artillery that unfortunately for Orb has no SAMs close. Like, this is a lot of helicopters. What is this, like, what is it, 600 helicopters, I think? And we can just see how quickly the artillery pops. So that's tough for Orb. And moving these SAMs through these mountain ranges and forests is going to take forever. Because as we can see in the tooltip, there is a speed penalty for like moving stuff through forests and mountains. It's the same thing in the forest. So it's a little bit less, but the idea remains the same, that these artillery are in a lot of trouble. And in fact, I think Nickname can clean up like a huge chunk of them. Orb's going for an airport of their own. I wonder what they're going to make out of that. Could be strikers to try to clean up this, because Orb probably knows that they can't make a dock. Nickname's done a great job to kind of wedge some boats into like anywhere that boats could come from Orb, because imagine if Orb made something in the back here to try to be a very defensive dock. Nickname's going to be able to find out relatively quickly. It's a lot of infantry. See, this is a safe gas. This is safe gas from Orb. We can really... I don't know what... You know, so like this is Nickname's view here. With these two tanks in the back. They of course don't know yet about this gas, but they will. You can see that Nickname's tried to retreat move there, so they've probably started thinking that that gas would be in Orb's hands. Nickname has so much gas. They're self-destructing this building. All three of these buildings. So income, it's so cute that there's little charges that are put on the building. But the point of that is that Nicknames realized that this is no longer where the fight is in the north, and that it would be better to lose that that income, like all the upkeep required of those buildings. 1181 income for Nickname and just over 1,000 for Orb. So this push on the left is probably going to be big. These two tanks for Nickname are going to snipe this gas, which is enormous. It is interceptors out of this airfield for Orb. The point, of course, would be to get rid of these helicopters. That does make a lot of sense. Because, I mean, the helicopters on the right are obviously doing a fantastic job. The helicopters on the left are not, for obvious reasons, just because they're immediately over SAMs. But, I mean, that's a lot of, like, that's a good trade for Nickname on the right side. I don't know if overall it was. And if Orb can get a decent amount of interceptors, that could be really good for them to kind of to clear out those helicopters. Nickname has helo support down here, though. This is a good push for Nickname. With all of these reinforcements, I think if Nickname puts down some production on this part of the island, they're going to be able to push all the way to the heart of Orb's production. Orb's totally out of gas now because we probably, yeah, the tanks have just killed that gas, and that's why we get that. These SAMs are really coming in clutch for Orb, especially if they can last hit this. Oh my gosh, this plane gets away. This helicopter gets away. But I mean, these tanks, that's big to be able to pull off, you know, get rid of that gas, because these interceptors can't fly anymore, is the problem. So imagine if Orc used interceptors down here to get rid of this tank, sorry, rather get rid of that helicopter, or even up to the north. Because there's only, okay, well there's now 7 SAMs, so 7 is a decent amount, but I mean, interceptors would still be really useful here for Orb, and that's why Orb is flying the sorties to try to deal with this. This is, okay, well this is something we need to pay attention to. 2 factories in the bottom right for Orb, that's a great way to get sticky in that part of the map. And if Nickname's not paying attention, you know, and only has infantry down there, you can build up a massive artillery and then just start pushing. We can look at more economic development for either player, even though there's no economy over here. Yeah, see, so this is a decent amount of artillery. I think over time this still looks good for Nickname. Even though they're getting surrounded a little bit here, and they're with more fighters, Orb, if Orb can get rid of all of these helicopters, they might actually be able to do this, because this is a lot of infantry trickling in for Nickname, but Orb has so many artillery. Econ wise, we really need to check. 920 for Orb, 1300 for Nickname. Yeah, I feel like economically it's just important. And with the better economy, Nickname is in a advantageous position. This is a decent amount of artillery for Orb, but if Nickname can get any amount of helicopters down there, they're going to be able to, you know, really deal with that. And in fact, Nickname's starting to move these helicopters across, so I wonder, you can see that they're using these retreat commands, like in legs. So getting the helicopters over here, then they'll land, they'll pick up this new retreat command, and this is a really good play by Nickname, to be able to move all those helicopters from the left side of the map all the way to the right, because there's SAMs for Orb up in the left, but there's definitely not in the bottom right. So over time, those helicopters are going to be able to help push that. And then once Orb loses that position in the bottom right, they're really contained to this far left part of the island, of this bottom, you know, bottom left part of the map. If either player is able to develop this city, I don't think it's going to happen at this point, but this was a surprisingly safe city that neither player went for, and I don't think either player really scouted that the other one wasn't there. Not that it matters, I mean, there's so much stuff going on. So these two tanks went somewhere, we didn't even see it. No, these two tanks are still up here, so they weren't the same two tanks, but these two tanks were able to get here and snipe this production, which every production building helps, especially when your opponent is on a lower income than you are. So now there's 4 helicopters over here. This is definitely going to get cleaned up. It's going to look ugly for a Nickname, but it will get cleaned up over time. And this is so much stuff, but I think between the helicopters and whatever units can trickle in, Nickname's gonna be fine. They're starting to cap this back right just with 1 SAM, which looks funny, but yeah, we can see the helicopters doing a great job there. These units are gonna be able to get on the production, and at the very least, no other units from this part of the map for Orb are gonna be able to help with this push. And so over time, as long as Nickname can group up, keep reinforcements together, I think they're going to be able to win this game. We can go big picture, but you really see just how much of the map Nickname has. At this point, these helicopters are going to be able to get rid of all these factories. Orb is maybe building SAMs out of them, as they are, which is really smart. That's the play that Orb needs to and wants to do. But I think it's just a little bit too late there. 3 factories for Nickname, which are going to really put the squeeze on Orb in this position. We can see that Orb has to keep a bunch of units at home. The only real thing that they have going for them at this point is this push. And if this push doesn't work, then it's over. With this many helicopters, and Nickname has the gas to use them, I think the helicopters could even still just overwhelm all these SAMs. We'll see. We're kind of waiting to see if Nickname launches them. Yeah, so Nickname now does. We saw in the bottom right earlier that the helicopters were running into a few SAMs. Still looks ugly, but I think in general is okay for Nickname. And I think Nickname's going to be able to clear these SAMs pretty quick with this number of helicopters. It's not pretty at all, but I think this first wave, we're going to lose a few helicopters to the SAMs, but then the second wave, there's only, what are there, 4 SAMs left? 3 SAMs left? Maybe even 2 SAMs by the time this is over. Very costly for Nickname, but in a lot of ways I think that actually is worth it. Yeah, Orb's getting a force here, but... And there's 4 factories, so yeah, Nickname does have to start building production here to make sure that they don't somehow get outproduced. They are ecoing there on that town, though, and the income, I'm sure, is just phenomenal, like, wildly in favor of Nickname. 1,500 for Nickname, 764 for Orb. Yeah. This is really close. This is really, really close. And I like what Orb was doing down here. And by digging in and just, you know, buying time to try to push back up that island. And it would have worked except for, I think, the helicopters that nickname moved across the entire map. I think those are what came in clutch. Even this is a lot of imagery at this point for nickname on the left side of the map. And Orb's just totally broke. And this is fizzling. This push. Yeah, because here comes the helicopters. They have 4 SAMs to kill. This 4th one won't even be here for a little bit. And once these 4 SAMs are done, then these helicopters get to run rampant. And here's your three main fights. We can quickly check in on this red island, but that is over time going to fall. And so we have a big fight on the left. The infantry getting on top of the airfields, which Orb doesn't have the gas to fly them anyway. Nickname pushing on the bottom. And then here, this is finally breaking and crumbling. SAMs will continue to do great work, but you can sense the momentum shifting, and then there's just not enough income for Orb. These commandos, I don't even know where, yeah, so there's just bend the corner. That's how, using these commandos to great effect to like open up the multitask game, and just, it's like very APM intensive in a lot of ways. I mean, I personally enjoy the playstyle that comes out of them. But yeah, props to both players. Props to Orb for like, you know, deflecting a lot of the stuff that Nickname was trying to do with the tanks earlier, then the commandos in the back, because they never let this production go down. Very cool game. Sweet. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I stream Line War. Other folks do too. You can head over to Twitch and follow the category. Come and say hello to anyone. Please feel free to join the Line War Discord. There is the Q2 2022 tournament that, I mean, by the time this video comes out, it's probably happening during this time. It's June 18th and 19th. But, you know, enjoy the night, day, evening, whatever it is for you. Have fun. Thank you very much. Peace.